How's it going, ladies and gentlemen? My name is Ruffled Rowlet, and welcome back to a brand new Pokemon news video. Today, guys, we've got a few things to take a look at, so sit back, relax, grab yourself a beverage, and let's get started. First things first, guys, is this post on 4chan. Now, keep in mind, 4chan posts, they shouldn't really be taken as, like, necessarily being always true and or false. It's a gamble, right? It's a 50-50 chance of these things being real. Sometimes they're more real than other times, but generally speaking, like, try not to take these as being 100% true, because, yeah, it is a rumor at the end of the day. So, if you guys are ready, well, put your hats on and let's get started. First things first, guys, this post says, Gen 10 is going to be lit by Anonymous. And, yeah, well, it's a bit of a goofy one. It's a bit of a goofy post, I'm not gonna lie. But at the end of the day, it is still a post nonetheless. I thought we'd just cover it because why not? This one says, Gen 10 is going to be lit by Anonymous. So, I've got a source working on Generation 10. Gave me some of the plans. Could he be lying? Yes, but if what he told me is true, it's looking like it's the ultimate Pokemon game. Alright, well, let's see what that ultimate Pokemon game would be according to, well, this person. They say based on Australia and New Zealand. Now, Australia and New Zealand would be a cool thing to base it off. We haven't yet to have an oceanic-based Pokemon region, which, if you really think about Oceania, you only have a few countries to work with. Like, what do you have, like, Papua New Guinea, maybe? Like, does that even count, or is it just New Zealand and Australia? Or those are the only two that count for oceanic? I think they are, aren't they? It's a bit unfortunate. But nonetheless, though, that's what he's saying. Based on Australia and New Zealand. Now I think about it, Australia could literally, like, the size it is, could be split into, like, 50 countries. But either way, point is, though, that it's going to be based on Australia and New Zealand. That's what he's saying, which honestly I think would be really cool. And I think it's good that, you know, you would include both of them because they are, you know, kind of next to each other, and both are nations that I feel like deserve to get, like, some sort of, you know, representation in this case. So shout out to all the Aussies. But yes, I do think Australia and New Zealand will be sick. Moving on, though, they have over 200 planned generation Pokemon. So basically saying that there are going to be over 200 Pokemon in this generation. If that is true, if that was true, which I highly doubt it would be, because Pokemon doesn't really do generation, like, increases in numbers that large. I think they have never done, like, 200 in a single generation, if we don't count forms and stuff. Like, I really doubt they've ever done that. Like, let's see. All new Pokemon introduced in each gen. Like, if we look, like, you know, how many Pokemon were introduced in every generation, like, number-wise, I don't think at any point we've had 200 introduced at once. Because there officially are 1,025 right now, I think. But if you look at the amount that were introduced in like, you know, if, for example, Kanto was 151, so it's 151 Pokemon. That was the original generation. Following that up, we had Johto, which had included exactly 100 new Pokemon. So we went from 151 to 251, right? So exactly 100 new Pokemon were included, which is fine. You know, like, it was a good set of Pokemon that were included, though, right? Following that up, we had Ruby and Sapphire, which actually introduced more at 135. So at that point, that was the highest increase since the first generation, right? Like, Gen 3 was the first time they introduced more than, you know, than that. And that was, again, that was just the third generation, so we're still early on. Moving on to Generation 4, if we go over here and you guys can again see all of these, moving on to, like, you know, Generation 4, the increase went up by another 107, right? So 107 new Pokemon were included, 107 new, you know, numbers, again, ending at Arceus here, starting with Turtwig. So again, 107. This is less than Ruby and Sapphire, but more than Gen 2's Johto, right? Moving on from that to Gen 5, here we had a big increase, and this was the biggest increase of Pokemon that they've had since Generation 1, like, straight up largest one, 156. That's more Pokemon than even Gen 1 had, like, you know, another 5 on top of that, the existing ones, right? So yes, Gen 5 was the last time we had a really big increase. Moving over, we get to X and Y, and this is probably one of the smallest ones. We only had 72 new Pokemon included, which is a really low number, if we're going to be honest here. Like, that's a really, really low number. Moving on from that, we had Sun and Moon, which again decreased that number to 88. But the thing is, you got to remember, this only introduced 72, but you also got to keep in mind there were Mega Evolutions and stuff included. In this case, we had, you know, also regional forms, so I don't know how those would count in this. On top of that, moving on to Generation 8, then it increases. So kind of starting from X and Y, it fell underneath that 100 number, and then slowly built up again, going to 88, and then over to, like, about 96 in Sword and Shield. So, like, Sword and Shield had more new Pokemon than, you know, Sun, Moon, and also X and Y. Moving on from that, though, Paldea is where we, I think, had a grand total of 120 new Pokemon in the, you know, to the world. which is actually, again, yeah, like they say here, it's the most new Pokemon since the 5th generation. So they have been increasing the number, but increasing that number to 200 would be literally totally crazy because they've never gone higher than 156 Pokemon in a single generation. And that was Gen 5. Like, Gen 5 was the generation that introduced the largest amount of brand new Pokemon. Beyond that, none of them have actually done that. Not a single other Pokemon generation has gone that far. Unless, of course, Generation 10 is kind of like almost like a reboot of the franchise, the same way that Gen 5 was supposed to be a reboot of the franchise. Maybe then they will increase the amount, but 200 is a lot, man. But either way, let's move on to the rest of the poster. There's a battle gimmick, but wouldn't say what it was. All right, well, that's just a nothing burger then. Moving on, they say there's also a breeding mechanic that could be based off of the fusions that we've been asking for. Ooh, i.e. crossbreeding, which I guess, like, that would be really cool, because I've already said it, but fusions seem like the logical next step in Pokemon, like, like, whatchamacallit, like, I guess Pokemon concepts or Pokemon like gimmicks, because we've already done the giant Pokemon, we've done the 4th evolution Pokemon, which is Megas, we've done the special moves ones, we've done the type change ones, right? Like, we've gotten through a lot of stuff. The only real thing now what I can think of is fusion. Fusion is like one of the things. We've done special attacks, like all that stuff has been like Z moves, Megas, Dynamax, and Terrastall. We've done everything like that, but we've yet to do fusion. And I know that you guys should also know that fusion Pokemon are one of the most popular things in Pokemon. Like, Pokemon Infinite Fusion is a fan game. That fan game became bigger than the mainline games for a period of time last year. The only reason it's not bigger today still is because Pokemon as a whole is kind of in the gutter right now. Like, Pokemon stocks are down, baby. So yeah, the example he gave of me specifically said was not one of the options, was that if you gave Pinsir a new item and bred it with a Heracross who was holding the same item, then a new Pokemon with physical traits of both of them would be born. He didn't say whether or not the same items would be used for all crossbreeds, or if each set has a unique item needed. So I think it actually would be a cooler idea, like he says here, that instead of it being actual fusions, that they would just have like crossbred, like, Pokemon forms. Like, I think that would actually make more sense, and it would make it more doable, because then they could be like, yeah, sorry, but a Pikachu cannot crossbreed with a Snorlax, so you can't have Snorpichu or whatever the hell. My point is, like, it actually would make sense if they did it something like this instead of straight up fusions and calling them fusions, because that would make it a little bit harder. Okay, it would make it a little bit harder to, like, pull off, and it would be too large, because then people could argue, like, well, if I can fuse, like, a Pidgey and a I don't know, Sparrow together, why can I not fuse a Pikachu and a Wailord? You know what I mean? Point is that, like, the logical way would be to do something like this and not full-on fusions, though fusions would be cooler. But either way, but also a lot more work. National Pokédex returns. Thank you, Switch 2, expanded and enhanced capabilities. I hope so. I really doubt it, though. I really doubt that there would be, that they would actually bring back both. Like, that just does not seem like realistic. You know what I mean? Like, that does not seem realistic at all to me. But I mean, again, I could be crazy here, but I don't know, Chief. That does not seem like it will be the case here. I don't know. I'm not sure what to say about that one. Moving on, though, he says that apparently current plans are to have the other regions, such as Kanto, Johto, be available for DLC on one version, and the other version would have Unova and Alola for its DLC. That's where you lose me. Wouldn't surprise me to see them alternate DLC releases. I'm going to be real with you, bro. There is no way, okay? No way, Jose, that they would decide to go down that path. Like, again, I'm telling you, man, it just doesn't... Current plans are to have regions such as Kanto and Johto be available for DLC on one version, and the other version would have Unova and Alola for its DLC. Wouldn't surprise me to see them alternate to DLC releases. I'm sorry, but there's no way. Like, no way will they do this. There's no way they would make remake all of Kanto, Johto, Unova, Alola, remake all of those just to have them as DLC for Generation 10. That is, like, so far beyond the scope of realism, like the scope of actual human reality. Like, no, it just doesn't, it's not going to happen. That's just never going to happen. That's so far beyond what the scope of what Game Freak would ever attempt to do. Because at that point, you're saying, like, oh, we're getting every single region, essentially, in one game, which they're never going to do, because that's so counterproductive from a business standpoint. Like, you're wasting time, and you could easily sell those individual, like, remade areas of those parts of the map, of those worlds, those regions, as separate games. Why would you do it like this? This is so stupid. But yeah, no, I highly would doubt that. Asked about evolutions, and what they told me was that they had designs for Ghost, Steel, and Normal, but decided on a different path. So apparently they had designs, but I guess they're not doing them. Okay. Apparently they are planning on bringing back certain mechanics from every other generation. Example he gave me was the phone from Gold and Silver, that we would be able to call NPCs and have battles. That is actually cool. I like that. And also be able to call other players we've had raid battles with. Apparently we can permit people to get our number after battles and raids. Not real number and no actual calling. All messages are presets. Okay. Apparently did not give me the titles. Can select age and experience with playing Pokemon games. This will just skip the repetitive catching sequence and other parts that people who have played these games for 30 years get bored with. Voice acting, due to the longer time between Gen 9 and Gen 10 and the Switch 2's capabilities, the production team was able to add some quality of life. I just highly doubt Pokemon will ever have voice acting. I highly doubt it. I really don't think it's never had it. I don't think it ever will. I think it would be so cool if it did, but I've got to be real and say I highly doubt that's actually the case. Like, I highly, highly doubt that's ever going to be real. But again, if you guys disagree with that, you can always let me know what you think. Again, this whole rumor, like, some of the stuff sounds like a little bit fun, I guess. Like, I would love for, the breeding mechanic to be a sort of fusion mechanic instead. Like, that would actually be really cool. Like, that genuinely sounds like a cool idea. Fusions in Pokemon is something that I think a lot of people want. I mean, you guys can comment down below. Do you guys want fusions or do you not want fusions? Because personally, I do. I think fusions would be great. I think fusions would be honestly fantastic, to be real with you. I think they would be amazing. But realistically speaking also, how likely are they to actually be real? That's a bit of a different question, right? Again, I would love fusions. They're just very difficult to make. It's a lot of them. The only reasons Infinite Fusion can do it the way it does it, I think, is because initially Infinite Fusion used like a kind of like an AI, like not an AI, but like a generator that would simply just mash together different sprites into weird amalgamations. And then over time, people have created like the community together has come together to create a bunch of sprites for it. And keep in mind, those sprites, they are easier to make than 3D modeling, thousands of Pokemon fusions, like hundreds of thousands between every single Pokemon in existence. I think a breeding mechanic that kind of allows you to sort of do fusions, but not really fusions, would be way better and also more doable. You'll be able to limit the scope of it, but still allow people to do kind of fun stuff with it. So I feel like in that sense, it does fit, and it would actually be a reasonable feature that we could expect to see. But that's pretty much that. As for the rest of it, though, evolutions, again, it seems like he's saying that, like, they planned it, but they're not going to do it. This is a thing that does happen with Game Freak. You got to keep in mind. Game Freak does sometimes create things and then simply just drops them, right? Like, they will create something new and then they'll just drop it in the middle of, like, development or creation. That's something that does happen, okay? We cannot deny it or pretend like that's not reality, because it is. And I will say that there's nothing wrong with that, okay? Like, sometimes things will get canceled and they will scrap it. And in this case, evolutions, I feel like we have so many already, but I wouldn't mind new ones. I think a lot of you want new ones too, because the last one we had was Sylveon, right? So we haven't had a new evolution in a long time. I think a lot of people just want a new one just to fill in all the typings, because it's kind of the fun thing with evolutions, right? They're supposed to kind of fill every single type spot, but we don't have them for every type. Like, there's no bug type. There is no ghost type. Where are those? Like, we need those still, but I digress. We'll see if that ever happens, and let's move on to the next thing. So, real quick, guys, this is some Pokemon official news, but yes, there are some active Tera raid events, which is starting today. Yes, there is currently a active Tera raid event going on. Also, check out PokeEOS if you guys, if you guys want to, like, keep track of anything to do with Pokemon updates and stuff like that. Basically, there's an active Tera raid event for Mighty Emboar. This is the second one. It's a 7-star Black Tera raid, and you'll be able to catch it. It's an electric Tera type. It's from today, the 21st of June, Friday, until the 23rd midnight of Sunday. So Sunday midnight is when it ends, and this thing is sick. It's level 100, of course. It's got the ability Reckless. It's got the moves Flare Blitz, Drain Punch, Wild Charge, Head Smash, Bulk Up, and Heat Crash. So it will be a chunky boy to take on, but I would highly recommend going and get it while you can, because it will not be there permanently. Also, for anybody who plays Pokemon Go, apparently Pokemon Go Mega Rayquaza event is coming again. So yes, the Megas are returning once more with this one. It's apparently going to be starting in 8 days. You guys can see the countdown timer here, which is great. It's going to be on Saturday, June 29th, so it is literally on this coming weekend. Sorry, next weekend, not this exact weekend, but it's like following weekend. Which, yes, if you guys want to go get your hands on Rayquaza, again, go for it. There's going to be some sort of anniversary box, but I highly recommend not getting those because it's like $5 for 3 remote raid passes, 1 incubator, and 3 premium battle passes. Like, that's not worth your money, so definitely do not get that. And finally, we also have this right here. Now, you guys may not know this person, but I will just quickly explain. This is Ridlaku. Ridlaku in the past has been correct about a heavy amount of content, okay, and a heavy amount of leaks. He used to leak a lot of stuff. He used to make riddles to leak those things, but in recent time, he hasn't really provided a lot of information. However, he did tweet something out that I haven't seen anybody else mention, and that is Pandland. Now, if you guys are watching this and you do not know what Pandland is, this is a game made by Game Freak. Yes, Game Freak is the same company that makes the Pokemon games, the same company that owns the Pokemon brand. And Game Freak has been working on this. Pandland is one of their brand new games. And here we get to see some images of what it looks like. And here you guys can see we have these characters that look like pretty clean, actually. It has a little bit of that, like, I first thought this was Pokemon related. I thought this was Pokemon art. But the art style on this looks very similar to Pokemon. Like, it's definitely got that Pokemon-esque, like, Sugimori style to the faces and stuff. Like, it honestly is kind of crazy how similar it looks. But you guys can see gameplay. The game doesn't look like the most interesting, let's put it like that. I think it's a mobile game by some chance, and it kind of looks like one of those, like, maybe not like Clash of Clans, but Clash Royale, if you guys have ever heard of that game, Clash Royale. That's sort of what it looks like. Now, I was hoping, like, it was something else, but I don't know. Some people are saying, like, it could be, like, a bit more similar to maybe Pokemon, like, Conquest, but I don't know, man. I'm gonna be honest, I'm not sure. The game itself literally feels like more, like, again, the art style here reminds me of Pokemon Quest. If you guys ever played Pokemon Quest, you'll know what I'm talking about. Kind of reminds me of that. But like, the actual gameplay, I feel like it looks more like Clash, kind of like, you know, how would you say it? Like, literally, like, Clash Royale is, like, what I'm thinking of. Like, if you guys don't know Clash Royale, like, it's basically kind of looking like that. At least that's the feeling I'm getting. So, I don't know. Maybe I'm crazy here, but that's at least the vibe I'm getting. I'd love to know what you guys think about this. But this is, like, a project again by Game Freak. So, they've been spending time making this alongside Pokemon games. Again, I'd love your thoughts and opinions. This does look very much like Pokemon Quest more than anything. But, again, we'll have to wait and see what comes from this. But, yeah, that's pretty much this, guys. And, again, yeah, it's monsters again, which is kind of funny. They're just going down the Pokemon path once more. But, again, I'd love to know what you guys think about this. Let me know in the comment section down below. And I think that's pretty much it for today's video, guys. If you did enjoy, drop a like down below. And I'll see you guys in the next one. Peace out, and bye-bye.